everyone. I'm Jasmyne Keimig, Stranger staff writer, and welcome to the Strangers Film Club, a biweekly series where my colleague Charles Mudede, give him a wave, Charles, we both just dissect a film for your viewing pleasure. We're on our third film this week. And so for that occasion, we chose 2017's Lemon, directed by Janicza Bravo and starring Brett Gelman as Isaac, a failing actor living in Los Angeles whose girlfriend breaks up with him, causing his life to go into a tailspin. So before we get into that, Charles, where are you?
Oh, I'm in Detroit, live from Detroit, right here. You can see that's a GM downtown right there.
Incontinence is not just a lady problem, it's an everybody problem. 25 million Americans suffer from urinary incontinence. 25% of that 25 million are men. That's 5 million men with bladder problems.
You chose a really strange film. I mean, I know we're like discussing very earlier on, like the kind of films we'd like to talk about, and we sort of went back and forth, and we sort of had this criteria that we wanted to do these kinds of films with these kinds of directors and so forth and so on. And you're the one who brought up Lemon, and I know there's a relevance to it now, but I'll talk about it a little bit later or bring it up a little bit later. But I want to just start with why did you pick this film? And I must say, there's a scene in it that totally upset me. And I'll bring this up at the end if you want to remember. It was really hard for me to watch, and I'll let you know later on.
Yeah, I mean, I chose this film because I thought it was a very interesting movie. You know, it focuses on a really kind of failing white guy, right, living in LA. He's this self-absorbed actor, and he's just so weird. And I think I loved that it was directed by a Black woman, because I think if you look at the film poster or the trailer, there's one major Black character in it, but for the most part, it kind of has this Wes Anderson-esque kind of vintage feel to it, and it's kind of about white people, and I kind of loved that there's this Black woman making this film that was super absurd. And was very much about race, but maybe not in a way that people would come to expect. And it was really, it's difficult to watch too. I think it's it's very uncomfortable, and not because of necessarily because of the discussions, but because of the jokes and like how Janicza Bravo kind of like lingers on people's faces or lingers on certain uncomfortable situations. And I think also, right now we're in a moment where we're, getting rid of a mediocre white man from the White House,
Right. Yeah.
So I kind of loved that. I thought it was a really relevant thing to kind of talk about right now.
Right. Yeah. And there's also the book by Doma that came out just recently that also examines like this film, white men who are, in a sense, are don't have what it takes to to function, right, to get things done, which is what I mean. The whole thing, I sort of interview say it's uncomfortable, and I have to always warn people it's uncomfortable for a number of reasons, but not because you're watching a white guy who can't get his shit together, right? I mean, and thinks that he's got his shit together and all this stuff. We sort of brought this up a little bit, and I'll to be honest with you, we brought it up in the context of Ijoma and in the context of another conversation. But we wanted to know. I mean, we got to nail down what do we mean by mediocre, and I wanted to know what does that mean specifically to you?
Yeah, I think mediocrity to me means that it's not necessarily bad, but it's certainly not great, right? It kind of maybe fulfills, a certain aspect that's needed, right? Like in Lemon, Isaac, he's mediocre in the sense that, okay, he has a job, he isn't, mooching off of anyone. He has a car, but is the car nice? No. Is he good at his job? No. Right? It's that he's kind of fulfilling like a very bare minimum requirement of what it means to be an adult and what it means to kind of like exist on this planet.
What are you reading?
It's about a couple, a man and a woman. The man in the couple is passive, directionless. He's dead, but he doesn't know it. The woman.
You've been going out of town a lot, and I've been going through a lot, and I've been feeling really bad. I've been holding back, but I'm not good right now.
This actually is about me. It's about how I feel, so don't make it about what you're going through and where you're at.
I kind of see mediocrity as being something that perhaps, okay, you finished a project or you expressed yourself, but like, you know, how does that, you know, is that really actually good? Is it really actually thoughtful? Is it really actually doing something different or interesting or entertaining? And so I think that it was just very interesting to see Bravo kind of take this mediocre character and just like make him fail over and over and over and over and over again for 90 minutes.
Right, yeah.
But I'm curious, what do you think of mediocrity? What is that?
Oh, me? Yeah, you know, surprising question for me in this context. When Hurricane Katrina happened, I happened to be in a situation with like 5 other like black men who are rappers, and we're just sitting around like smoking. They thought that the whole thing dealing with the levee was planned, was pre-planned. Like they'd always want. They had a sort of conspiratorial like answer to what to the catastrophe. And I sat down and said, well, what if they just didn't know what they're doing? What if all these people have all these jobs and they get to these jobs because they're white, right? Or they connected in being white or something, and in fact they don't know what the hell this job is about, right? You know, we could say maybe it's systematic, so the conspiracy is answered in that way, that we end up with a lot of white men who are not up to the job because of systemic racism. And so in that sense, the conspiracy theory kind of has some ground, right? But if you look at it, I mean, the person who was running the FEMA at the time was a horse judge. Right? I mean, you can't, to me, that is like the, you know what I mean? That is the essence of like, to me, of mediocre, right? Like, what the hell are you doing in that job, which demands you have all this experience, that you've done the training and so forth. And we need training or somebody who's experienced in so many different fields. I mean, you won't fly in a plane with somebody who doesn't know how to fly a plane. Yeah. Why did he get that job, and so forth and so on. And that to me, we're coming out of like, they still believe they're still at a point of authority. Right? Like he still thinks he's an actual teacher. Like he has something to teach students. And so you have this awkward moment with him and one of his star students, and it's bound to fail because he has no concept, and he has no magnetism, as he has nothing to offer the student. The student just sees him as a rung in the ladder to his, you know, to be like, I'll just deal with this dodo now, but I'll go and I'll meet somebody who knows something later on.
I knew you were crazy. I thought it was good crazy. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was fun. Now I know you're bad crazy. You're unstable. You should talk to someone about where you're at.
Because I think definitely when thinking about mediocrity in the context of like whiteness, it's very much about like you were speaking about DeVos earlier, like the director of FEMA, is that, you know, being in a position that you don't deserve, you know, based simply because you're a white person, right? Or because maybe you went to school with someone.
Yes.
I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind while watching this movie, because I think if you don't really kind of have this understanding of white people and of like white and encountering white people who are in positions that don't deserve it, that you'll just kind of see this movie as being painful for no reason.
I mean, he's in good shape too, but it's just that I'm much thinner. Mom, I gotta call you back.
When you look at a film, this is like almost like, okay, let's look at your competent white person. let's look at who you call competent, right? So learn about, yeah, like, okay, we're gonna start looking at the white people who are running stuff. How did you get here? What do you have? What do you got? What have you? And nobody even bothered to ask during the affirmative action reaction about white competency at all. It was almost accepted that white competency was a given.
Yeah.
Black competence was the
Yeah,
default.
but it's that whiteness is always deserving, right? And that, but like blackness in competence needs to be earned, right?
Right. Yes. Right.
And I think that that's why I also thought, and of course, I think that this discussion would only come from a Black woman directing, you know, just the shittiest white guy that you can find, right? As a character. I thought that was brilliant.
Buddy, I got you one on this national spot. I'll send over the pages. Look it over. I like it. It's not exactly your thing, but they love your look. They said you're in their top 6. Top 6!
There's also another aspect of this film. I'm going to sort of jump ahead a little bit because I wanted to ask, you know, I mean, there's also this other Jewish side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's white, but he's also Jewish as well.
Right.
And in other respect, he reminds me of a little bit of like, you know, I know there's this sort of this schleppy sort of white guy, you know, archetype in film, right?
Right.
But he also does this thing,
Yeah, because I think what's interesting is that Janicza Bravo and actually the star of the film, Brett Gelman, who plays Isaac, they used to be married, and they actually wrote the film 6 years before it was made, right? And so if you think, you know, this film was made in 2017, they were writing it in like 2011, right, the early 2010s, when I think the kind of Judd Apatow comedy was really big, right? With like Seth Rogen and Knocked Up, you know, like 40-Year-Old Virgin, like all these kind of like white men who are by all accounts mediocre, somehow ending up with like having sex and, you know, having sex with Katherine Heigl, right? Being in these relationships and like kind of succeeding in a way that makes absolutely no sense, you know, realistically. And so like Janicza Bravo was kind of talking about, she wanted to create a comedy that was in conversation with, you know, films like that depict men in their 30s and 40s just failing, but then somehow ending up, you know, as the hero in the end. And so this was her kind of spin on the topic, right? Is that I think, you know, this film is extreme to the extent that Isaac just never wins, right? But it's also sort of like, this is what I would do to my character. You know, this is what I think should actually happen to men who, you know, hit all of this criteria of like not being necessarily attractive, not being good at their job, you know, kind of fucking up their relationships. And so I think that when you kind of think about the film in that context, you can see how it really kind of talks to like a Seth Rogen-esque character, or like any kind of Judd Apatow films.
What kind of fish is that?
Mackerel.
Do you need anything?
You smell like flowers.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
How old is your son?
He's 8.
My sister has a black son. He's 6.
That's wonderful.
I think also the kind of thread of Jewishness that runs through it is that Janicza Bravo, she's Afro-Latina, her family is from Panama, she's Panamanian American, and she's also Jewish as well, right? And so you have that kind of big centerpiece in the middle of the film where Isaac goes to his family's house for Passover, and you kind of get this understanding of, okay, well, he comes from wealth, right? His family's obviously very wealthy, also very dysfunctional. And so you can kind of get an understanding as to, you know, what kind of made Isaac, right? The kind of anxieties that come with that. But then also, you know, kind of thinking about Jewish identity at the same time as well, right? And I know that Isaac's sister adopted a black child, right? And so there's this kind of tension of like having a black kid, an adopted black kid at a Passover dinner, and some of the family members aren't really okay with him being there because they don't see him as being sufficiently Jewish enough. I thought that was a kind of dynamic there that I don't think we would have seen from any other perspective, and I think is really interesting one to kind of bring in.
A million matzo balls, a million matzo balls. One day my mama made a million matzo balls, a million matzo balls, a million matzo balls. One day my mama made a million matzo balls.
My last sort of bit of thinking, I mean, just to discuss it, the last thing is like, you know, why is Nia Long in this film? That I never, I understand, but I'm glad she's in it. She's marvelous, but yeah.
I think arguably, I think from a certain perspective, Nia Long is the biggest star by far in this film. Right?
Yeah, right.
I think, you know, I mean, there's Megan Mullally, there's Martin Starr, you know, there's Judy Greer, I think her name is. So, I mean, all those people are like really big character actors, but like Nia Long is like, she's a superstar, right? I think especially in Black film.
She's a major participant of the Black Hollywood movement
totally.
in the 90s, yeah.
Totally.
Your favorite qualities in a man?
Feminine charms.
Your favorite qualities in a woman?
Manly virtues.
What do you appreciate most in your friends?
Tenderness.
Your idea of happiness?
I'm afraid of destroying it.
And so it's interesting because Janicza Bravo talks about she kind of had everyone for the film set except for Nia Long's character, and she really wanted her. And I think she said that she ended up going through Nia Long's filmography and figuring out that she had never been directed by a Black woman before. And so Janicza Bravo told her agent, tell her that I'm a Black woman. Send this script and tell Nia Long that I'm a Black woman going to direct her. And as soon as you know, the agent said that, Nia Long accepted and was a part of this. And so I think that was a really kind of clever way to kind of think about you know, about how Nia Long kind of actually physically kind of ended up in this film, but then also I think that her character kind of, we would think that she would be the perspective of Janicza Bravo because, you know, she's a Black woman kind of dating this Jewish guy that kind of mirrors the way that Brett Gelman and Janicza met each other. But, you know, in a way, you know, it's, her character is really, I feel like, fleshed out in a way. And I think you notice that too, where, you know, she's Caribbean American, and she kind of has her own life, and she kind of brings this sort of, I don't know, interiority to her character that I think is really interesting. And I mean, I think the most confusing thing for me is why is she going on a date with Isaac, right? Like, it just kind of, something about it like doesn't really add up for me.
I saw a documentary on hair in the African American community. A lot of hair comes from horses. Quality hair is sourced in India. You want to dance?
Is there music? You know, I had a really busy week, and I am tired. I'm sorry. What do you think about just getting a check, maybe?
Interest on her part, right? It's kind of like, okay, kind of like, yeah, sure, we can do that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but and so, with just a sort of mild curiosity on her part, like, she may not have ever dated a white man before. She might have just been, you know, she has a Black son, right? And she has her family situation's like very Black, and I wondered if this was just a situation of like, you know what I mean, just absolutely. Like,
she just thinks all white people are like this.
Yeah, it was possible.
Like, no, it doesn't really, nothing seems off to me, right?
Yeah, right. It's just like, wow, this is white guys. This is like what you know what I mean? There was this part of me that was a little sort of a prurient and almost like interest in her part. Like, oh yeah, this is, and she did this very well because she didn't. She had such a great. She nailed the character so majestically.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you didn't quite always doubt her interest or whether what it was.
This is my friend Isaac.
Gilroy, All my friends call me Gilly. Any friend of Cleopatra is a friend of mine.
I didn't know there'd be accents.
Excuse me?
I want you to meet everyone.
Oh wait, Charles, I forgot to ask. What scene disturbed you?
Okay, I make films, right? I make films. I do. And the one thing I banished in all my films, and it's come up, even people who I've worked with, and they wanted to put some scene like this in, and I've just said absolutely not.
Yeah.
And everybody knows I'm just prickly about this. I refuse to show anyone urinating or taking a dump. I will not. I refuse. I think, you know what I mean? And to me, it's just like I cannot imagine. When I saw, I was like, oh, like, why do we do this to my favorite art form? Why?
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that about you at all.
Yeah, but if you watch my work, there's no even my writing. You won't find any kind of discussion.
Nothing scatological at all about
it's scatological, like
Thanks so much for chatting, Charles. This was great. Thanks so much to our readers for watching. If you're watching this on social media, be sure to head over to Slog, where I have an essay up about lemon. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Good luck out there. Bye.
Bye-bye.